I'm Lucy Carter, 28, and 3 months ago I became a military widow with a newborn daughter when my husband Marcus was killed in action overseas. Yesterday, at what should have been my daughter's baptism, my own parents looked at my crying baby and said the words that shattered my heart. We're not helping you raise that war orphan. You made your bed, now lie in it. What they didn't know was that Marcus had left us something that would change everything, and I was about to show them exactly what their granddaughter was worth. The letter he wrote before his final deployment had hinted at preparations he'd made, preparations I never understood until yesterday. Now, sitting in my empty apartment with Emma sleeping in my arms, I'm ready to tell you a story about betrayal, hidden legacies, and the moment I realized my worth had nothing to do with their approval. Before we jump back in, tell me where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. If you've ever been abandoned by the people who should love you most, hit that like button because this story is going to blow your mind. 3 months ago, I stood in Arlington National Cemetery watching them fold the American flag that had draped Marcus's casket. The sharp crack of each fold echoed in the silence, 21 gun salutes still ringing in my ears. Emma was only 6 weeks old then, sleeping against my chest in her tiny black dress while I tried to process that my husband was really gone. The military honors were beautiful and devastating. Marcus's commanding officers spoke about his courage, how he died, protecting a convoy of Afghan civilians from an IED blast, how he'd thrown himself between the explosion and a family with children. The words felt surreal, like they were talking about someone else's husband, not the man who sang silly songs to Emma during her 3 a.m. feeding. My parents sat 3 rows behind me. They'd driven up from Richmond without calling, just appeared at the funeral home like they had every right to be there. When people offered condolences, they accepted them with solemn nods, playing the role of grieving in-laws. But I caught my mother's whispered comment to my aunt. Such a tragedy, but we warned her this would happen. After the service, as military families surrounded me with genuine warmth and support, my parents stood apart. Dad checked his watch repeatedly while Mum pursed her lips at Emma's occasional cries. When Sergeant William's wife, Maria, offered to help with anything I needed, my mother actually scoffed. She made her choice. Mom said loud enough for others to hear, "Military wives know what they're signing up for." The chaplain handed me Marcus's service record along with the folded flag. 23 years old, 2 bronze stars, a purple heart, and a silver star for valor. The paper detailed his final mission leading a humanitarian supply convoy when insurgents attacked. He'd saved 12 lives before the second explosion took his. That night, alone in our base housing with Emma, I read through his service record again and again. This document proved what kind of man I'd married, what kind of father Emma had lost, but my parents saw only their vindication, their prophecy of military tragedy fulfilled. Didn't know then that Marcus had left us more than memories and military honors. Hidden in his personal effects was something that would change our entire future. Something that would prove his love extended far beyond his final heroic act. I met Marcus during my senior year at Virginia Commonwealth University, at a coffee shop near campus where I was cramming for my business finance final. He was in uniform, looking uncomfortable as he nursed a black coffee and stared at a laptop screen covered in online course materials. When his phone rang and he answered with a quiet "Yes, ma'am," I could hear the respect in his voice even from 3 tables away. He caught me watching and smiled, this shy, genuine smile that made my heart skip. When he packed up to leave, he stopped at my table. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice you're studying finance. I'm taking online business courses through the base, and I'm completely lost on portfolio theory. Any chance you could point me toward a good study resource?" That's how it started. Marcus Carter, 21 years old, infantry specialist stationed at Fort Lee. He'd enlisted straight out of high school in rural Kentucky, using the army to pay for the college education his family couldn't afford. He was working toward a business degree in his spare time, dreaming of opening a small investment firm back home someday. We started studying together twice a week. I learned that beneath the military precision was a young man with incredible dreams and work ethic. He'd grown up poor, but instead of being bitter, he was determined to build something better. He talked about wanting to help other working-class families make smart financial decisions, to break the cycle of paycheck to paycheck living. When I brought him home for dinner 6 weeks later, the temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. "So, you're a soldier," Dad said, not bothering to hide his disdain. "What exactly do you plan to do with your life?" Marcus straightened, respectful but confident. "I'm pursuing a business degree, sir. I plan to start an investment consulting firm after my service." Mom actually laughed. "Honey, those dreams sound lovely, but let's be realistic. Military men don't become businessmen. They become casualties or broken veterans who can't adjust to civilian life." I watched Marcus's jaw tighten, but he remained polite. "With respect, ma'am, I believe education and determination can overcome any background." After Marcus left that night, my parents cornered me in the kitchen. The college graduation photo of Marcus and me, taken just days before, still sat on the counter where I'd proudly displayed it. "Lucy, sweetheart, you're about to graduate with honors," Dad said. "You have opportunities. Don't throw your life away on some soldier boy with unrealistic dreams." "He's not throwing his life away, Dad. He's building something. He's a distraction," Mom snapped. "And if you insist on this relationship, don't expect our financial support after graduation. We won't fund your mistakes." That threat hung over us for months. But Marcus proved his character in dozens of small ways. He helped me study for the CPA exam, celebrated when I landed interviews with prestigious accounting firms, and never once suggested I should limit my ambitions for his military career. The night before I graduated, he took me to our coffee shop and pulled out a small velvet box. "Lucy, I know your parents think I can't provide for you. I know I'm asking you to take a risk. But I love you, and I believe we can build something amazing together. Will you marry me?" Looking at that ring, not expensive but chosen with such care, I realized I'd already made my choice months ago. Marcus saw my potential and encouraged my dreams, while my parents saw only their own fears and prejudices. 3 weeks before our wedding, the envelope arrived. My beautiful wedding invitation, the one I'd carefully addressed in my best handwriting, returned unopened. Stamped across the front in red ink, "Refused." I stared at that single word until the letters blurred through my tears. Marcus found me sitting on our couch, still holding the envelope, mascara streaking down my cheeks. "Hey, what's wrong?" He sat beside me, gently taking the invitation from my hands. "They refused it, Marcus. They literally refused to even open our wedding invitation." His face hardened, but when he spoke, his voice was gentle. "Lucy, I'm sorry. I know you hoped." "I called them." I interrupted. "I called after the invitation came back, thinking maybe it was a mistake." Mom answered, and when I asked if they'd received it, she said, "We received your announcement of a mistake." "Yes." Marcus pulled me against his chest. "What did you say?" "I asked if they'd come to the wedding." She said, "We don't attend celebrations of poor decisions." Then Dad got on the phone. I took a shaky breath. He said, "Don't come crying to us when he gets himself killed or abandons you for another woman. Military men don't make good husbands." The wedding was set for Fort Lee's chapel, small and intimate. I dreamed of walking down the aisle with my father, of my mother fussing over my dress, of family photos that would hang in our home for decades. Instead, I'd be walking alone. "I can postpone," Marcus said quietly. "We can wait, try to work things out with them." "No." I pulled back to look at him. "I won't postpone our life because they can't see what I see in you." The day of our wedding, March 15th, was unseasonably warm for Virginia. I'd found a simple, white dress at a discount store, nothing like the elaborate gown I'd once dreamed of, but it was ours. Marcus looked incredible in his dress uniform. The blue fabric crisp and decorated with his service ribbons. His military family had embraced me completely. Sergeant Williams walked me down the aisle, his wife Maria serving as my matron of honor. 23 soldiers and their families filled the small chapel, their voices strong as they sang hymns I'd never heard, but somehow felt in my bones. Marcus's commanding officer, Colonel Hayes, performed the ceremony as he spoke about commitment and sacrifice, about the unique challenges military families face. I felt surrounded by people who understood our choice. Do you, Lucy Ann, take Marcus to be your husband, to stand beside him through deployments and challenges, to build a life together despite the uncertainties of military service? I do, I said, looking into Marcus's eyes and seeing our entire future there. When he slipped the ring onto my finger, I heard Maria whisper, "Beautiful." Looking out at the congregation, I saw tears in the eyes of these strong military spouses, who knew exactly what we were choosing. The reception was in the base community center, decorated with simple white flowers and battery-operated lights. The cake was homemade by 3 different wives, each contributing a layer. During our first dance, I realized I wasn't missing anything. I was gaining a new family. But as Marcus spun me around the dance floor, I couldn't shake the image of 2 empty chairs where my parents should have been. That night, as we drove to our honeymoon cabin in the Shenandoah Mountains, I made a decision. I'm going to keep trying, I told Marcus. I'm going to prove to them that you're exactly the man I knew you were. Marcus squeezed my hand. And I'm going to prove that I can give you everything you deserve. Neither of us knew how prophetic those words would become. Our first apartment was 800 square feet of base, housing with thin walls and a heater that worked sporadically. The lease agreement, which I kept in our filing cabinet like a treasured document, listed our monthly rent as $450. To me, it was the foundation of everything we were building together. Marcus deployed 4 months after our wedding. I remember standing in the airport at 5 a.m., watching him disappear through the security checkpoint in his combat gear, backpack slung over his shoulder. He turned back 3 times to wave, each smile a little more strained than the last. Those 9 months taught me what it meant to be a military wife. I learned to sleep with the phone beside my bed, to calculate time zones instinctively, to find comfort in the routine of other military spouses who understood the particular loneliness of loving someone in harm's way. I threw myself into building the life Marcus and I had planned. My business degree wasn't gathering dust. I took a job at a local accounting firm, saving every penny we could. I balanced our checkbook obsessively, tracking expenses down to the dollar, building the financial foundation Marcus always talked about. During his deployment, I discovered the tight-knit community of military wives. Maria Williams became my lifeline, calling when I'd been too quiet, bringing groceries when she sensed I was struggling. These women understood something my parents never could, that military love requires a different kind of strength. Your husband chose service, Maria told me one evening as we folded laundry together. That means you chose service too. Don't let anyone tell you that's not honorable. I tried calling my parents every few weeks, hoping time might soften their hearts. The conversations were stilted, formal. Mom would ask about my job, but never about Marcus. Dad would mention practical concerns, insurance, finances, career prospects, but never expressed any warmth toward my husband or our marriage. When Marcus returned from his first deployment, he was different, more serious, more focused. He'd saved nearly every penny of his combat pay, and his first priority was our future. I've been thinking about what happens after the army, he said, spreading financial documents across our tiny kitchen table. I want to make sure you never have to depend on anyone else, Lucy, not even me. He'd been taking additional online courses during his deployment, studying investment strategies and financial planning. Our conversations became filled with terms like diversification and compound interest. He showed me spreadsheets tracking our savings growth, projected timelines for major purchases, plans for post-military life. You're obsessed, I teased, but I was proud of his dedication. I'm determined, he corrected. Your parents think I can't provide for you. I'm going to prove them wrong. The second deployment came 18 months later. By then, we'd saved $15,000 more money than I'd ever seen in one account. Marcus had been promoted to sergeant, and his financial planning had become even more sophisticated. I'm putting money into investments while I'm overseas, he told me over a video call from Afghanistan. Combat pay is tax-free, and I want every dollar working for our future. I trusted him completely, even though I didn't fully understand his growing interest in stocks and bonds. My focus was on building my career, taking on bigger clients at the accounting firm, proving I could be financially independent too. During quiet moments in our apartment, I'd look at our simple furniture, our carefully managed budget, our modest but growing savings account, and feel profound contentment. We were building something real together, something that had nothing to do with my parents' expectations or fears. I still sent them Christmas cards, birthday cards, photos of our life. Together. They never responded directly, but I knew they received them, because my aunt would occasionally mention seeing Marcus in his uniform, or comment on how happy I looked. What I didn't know was that Marcus was building something far bigger than I imagined. Something that would ensure our daughter never experienced the conditional love and financial manipulation that had defined my relationship with my parents. Something that would prove, once and for all, that his love for our family extended far beyond his military service. I discovered I was pregnant during Marcus's third deployment, staring at 2 pink lines in our bathroom at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. My hands shook as I took 3 more tests, each one confirming what my heart already knew. After 2 years of marriage, we were finally going to have a baby. The ultrasound photo from my first appointment became my most treasured possession. Baby Carter, the size of a blueberry, due in March. I carried that grainy black and white image everywhere, waiting for the perfect moment to tell Marcus over video call. When I finally showed him the ultrasound during our scheduled call at 3 p.m. his time, Marcus went completely silent. For a terrifying moment, I thought the connection had frozen. Then I saw tears streaming down his face. Lucy, are you serious? We're having a baby. We're having a baby, I confirmed, pressing the ultrasound against the laptop screen. I love you so much, he whispered. Both of you. I can't believe. God, I wish I could hold you right now. That night, I called my parents for the first time in 6 months. Mum answered on the 4th ring. Hi, Mum. I have some news I wanted to share. Oh. What's that, Lucy? I'm pregnant. You're going to be grandparents. The silence stretched so long I checked my phone to make sure the call hadn't dropped. Mom, did you hear me? I heard you. How far along? 12 weeks. The baby's due in March. Another pause, and Marcus is deployed. Yes, but he'll be back. Before the baby comes, if he comes back, she said quietly. Mom, please don't. Lucy, I hope you've thought this through. Raising a child alone is difficult enough without the uncertainty of military life. The call ended with her promising to talk to your father, and me feeling more alone than ever. I never received a congratulations card, flowers, or any acknowledgement of their first grandchild. As my pregnancy progressed, the military wives rallied around me. Maria organized a baby shower that filled our small apartment with laughter and gifts. These women, who understood the unique challenges of military motherhood, became my chosen family. But the pregnancy wasn't easy. At 28 weeks, I started experiencing severe cramping during a thunderstorm. Maria rushed me to the base hospital, where doctors discovered I was in early labor. We need to stop this, Dr. Peterson said, starting in 4. The baby needs more time. I spent 3 days in the hospital on bed rest, terrified and alone. The nurses were kind, but all I wanted was Marcus. When I finally called him with the news, I watched his face crumble through the computer screen. I should be there, he kept saying. I should be taking care of you. The baby's okay, I reassured him. We're both okay. I'm requesting emergency leave. Marcus, you can't leave your unit for a scare. The baby's fine now. That he'd already made up his mind. 2 weeks later, Marcus walked through our apartment door 48 hours before his scheduled return. He'd used his accumulated leave and called in every favor to come home early. I couldn't risk missing this, he said, his hands gentle on my rounded belly. I won't miss our baby's birth. Those final weeks of pregnancy, with Marcus home and attentive, were the happiest of our marriage. He assembled the crib, painted the nursery pale yellow, and talked to the baby every night. Hey, little one, he'd whisper against my belly. It's Daddy. I can't wait to meet you. He'd also grown more secretive about his finances, spending hours on the laptop after he thought I was asleep. When I asked about it, he'd just smile and say he was planning for our future. The ultrasound photo, now worn from handling, sat framed on our nightstand. In it, our baby appeared to be waving a tiny hand raised toward the camera. Marcus said it was a sign that our child was already saying hello to the world. Neither of us knew that photo would become one of the most precious items Marcus would carry during his final deployment, or that our daughter would never get to wave back to the father who loved her before she was even born. Emma decided to make her entrance 3 weeks early. At 2:17 a.m. on a cold February morning, I woke to contractions that felt like my entire body was being squeezed, and I knew immediately this wasn't false labor. Marcus, I whispered, shaking his shoulder. It's time. He bolted upright, instantly alert in that way soldiers learn. Another contraction answered his questioning look, and Marcus was already pulling on clothes, grabbing our hospital bag, helping me to the car with steady hands. The drive to base hospital took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Marcus held my hand at every red light, whispering reassurances while I breathed through waves of pain, getting stronger and closer together. In the delivery room, everything happened faster than planned. The baby was coming whether we were ready or not, and suddenly Dr. Peterson was telling me to push with urgent intensity. One more push, Lucy. I can see the head. Marcus was beside me in his military uniform from his late shift, his face showing awe and terror. You're incredible, he kept saying. You're so strong. Emma Rose Carter entered the world at 4:43 a.m., weighing 6 pounds, 2 ounces, with a cry that filled the delivery room. When Dr. Peterson placed her on my chest, slippery and perfect and screaming, Marcus broke down completely. She's beautiful, he sobbed, touching her tiny fist with one finger. Lucy, she's perfect. The hospital bracelet they placed on Emma's wrist listed her full name and Marcus Carter as father. Seeing his name officially linked to hers made everything real in ways I hadn't expected. Marcus couldn't stop staring at her. During those first hours, while I dozed between feedings, he sat holding Emma against his chest, whispering in a voice I'd never heard before. Hey, beautiful girl. I'm your daddy. I've been waiting so long to meet you. He called his commanding officer to report the birth, then spent 20 minutes describing every detail of Emma's fingers and toes to deployed army buddies. The pride in his voice was unmistakable. When nurses brought Emma back from newborn tests, Marcus insisted on changing her first diaper, his large hands gentle as he navigated tiny snaps and soft limbs. I need to learn everything, he said. I want to be the best dad possible. Those 3 days in the hospital were like a perfect bubble. Marcus barely left my side, bringing ice chips, helping with breastfeeding, taking hundreds of photos. He studied every expression like he was memorizing her. On our second night, I woke finding Marcus at the window, holding sleeping Emma. What are you thinking about? I asked softly. Her future, he said without turning. All the things I want to give her, all the opportunities she deserves. I want her to have choices, Lucy. I want her never feeling limited by circumstances. She will, I promised. Look at her father. You've built something amazing from nothing. The day we brought Emma home, Marcus carried her car seat like it contained the most precious cargo imaginable. He'd installed the base twice, watched 3 YouTube videos, and had the fire department check his work. That first week, Marcus was on light duty to help with Emma. I watched him transform into a father with the same dedication he brought to everything else, learning her cries, perfecting the swaddle, taking 3 a.m. feedings so I could sleep. "I love this," he said one night, Emma asleep against his shoulder. "I love being her dad." 2 weeks later, his deployment orders came through. The deployment orders arrived on a Tuesday morning when Emma was 6 weeks old, sleeping peacefully in her bouncy seat while I sorted laundry. Marcus opened the official envelope with steady hands, and I saw his face change as he read. "Afghanistan," he said quietly. 12 months. I stopped folding tiny onesies and looked at him. "When?" 6 weeks. The room felt like it was tilting. Emma would be 4 months old when he left, nearly a year and a half when he returned, if he returned. I pushed that thought away immediately. "This is different," Marcus said, sitting on the couch and pulling me beside him. "I'm going to be more careful this time. I have too much to come home to." Those 6 weeks passed in a blur of preparation and precious moments. Marcus threw himself into daddy duties with desperate intensity, as if he could store up enough cuddles and bedtime stories to last a year. He changed every diaper, gave every bath, took the night shift so I could sleep. He also became increasingly focused on financial planning, staying up late working on his laptop after Emma and I were asleep. When I asked about it, he'd just say he was making sure you're both taken care of. "I've set up automatic transfers," he explained one night, showing me bank statements I barely understood. "Military saves plans, investment accounts. Everything's handled so you don't have to worry about money. Marcus, we have savings, I have my job, we'll be fine." "I want more than fine for you and Emma," he said firmly. "I want security." The night before he deployed, Marcus barely slept. I found him at 3 a.m. standing over Emma's crib, just watching her breathe. "What if she doesn't remember me?" he whispered. "She remember," I promised, though the same fear kept me awake most nights. "We'll video call every day. You'll read her stories over the computer. It's not the same." He was right, and we both knew it. At the airport, Marcus held Emma for 20 minutes, whispering to her in a voice thick with tears, "Daddy has to go to work, sweet girl. But I'm going to call you every day, and I'm going to come home to you. I promise." He'd written her a letter, the first of many to read when she was older. "So she knows how much I loved her from the very beginning," he explained. The deployment was harder than his previous ones. Video calls were sporadic due to operational security, and when we did connect, Marcus looked increasingly tired and stressed. But his face would light up when he saw Emma, who had learned to smile and giggle in his absence. "She's changed so much," he'd say, studying her through the computer screen. "Show me her hands again. Did she grab that toy by herself?" I started keeping a detailed journal of Emma's development to share with him. First time she rolled over, her first laugh, the way she kicked excitedly during bath time. I wanted him to miss as little as possible. But something was different about this deployment. Marcus seemed more worried, more cautious in what he shared about his daily activities. When I asked directly about his mission, he'd deflect. "Just keeping busy," he'd say. "How's Emma sleeping? Is she still fighting the swaddle?" 3 months in, during one of our rare video calls, Marcus looked directly into the camera with an expression I'd never seen before. "Lucy, I need you to know something. If anything happens to me, don't," I interrupted. "Don't talk like that." "If anything happens," he continued firmly, "check my footlocker. There's something important you need to find. Marcus, you're scaring me. I'm being careful, but I need to know you'll be okay, both of you. Promise me you'll check the footlocker." "I promise, but nothing's going to happen. You're coming home." His expression softened. "I love you, Lucy. I love Emma. Everything I do is for you two." That was our last conversation. 4 days later, the notification officers knocked on my door. The knock came at 7:15 a.m. on a Thursday. Two sharp raps that somehow sounded different from the mailman or a neighbor. Emma was having her morning bottle, content in my arms, when I heard it. Something in the sound made my blood freeze. The peephole, I saw two soldiers in dress uniforms standing on my porch, their faces solemn and official. I knew before I opened the door. I knew from the way they stood, from the cap tucked under the taller one's arm, from the envelope in the other's hands. Double quotes, Mrs. Carter, the chaplain asked gently. No, I whispered, still holding Emma. No, please, ma'am, and Chaplain Rodriguez, and this is Captain Morrison. May we come in? I stepped back, Emma still in my arms, and let them into our living room. The room Marcus had painted blue when we moved in, where he'd assembled Emma's swing, where he'd spent hours on the floor doing tummy time with her just 4 months ago. Mrs. Carter, please sit down, Captain Morrison said. I remained standing, clutching Emma tighter. She looked up at me with Marcus's dark eyes, completely unaware that her world was about to change forever. Mrs. Carter, we regret to inform you that your husband, Sergeant Marcus J. Carter, was killed in action on Tuesday, April 15th, at approximately 1400 hours local time in Kandahar province, Afghanistan. The words hit me like physical blows. Emma started crying, whether from my tight grip or some instinct, I don't know. But her cries seemed to come from far away, like I was hearing them through water. He was leading a convoy escort mission when insurgents detonated an improvised explosive device. Captain Morrison continued. Sergeant Carter was killed instantly while shielding Afghan civilians from the blast. His actions saved the lives of 12 people, including 4 children. I sank onto the couch, Emma's cries growing louder. The chaplain sat beside me, his presence steady and calm. Was he? Did he suffer? I managed to ask. No, ma'am. The medics confirmed it was instantaneous. What happens now? The practical part of my brain was somehow still functioning, even as the rest of me felt like it was dissolving. They explained the process recovery of remains, funeral arrangements, benefits, support services. They handed me the official death notification certificate, a piece of paper that reduced my husband's life to clinical military language. Mrs. Carter, Sergeant Carter spoke about you and Emma constantly, Captain Morrison said. Every soldier in his unit knew how much he loved his family. He carried Emma's ultrasound photo in his helmet. He showed everyone pictures from her birth. After they left, I sat in our quiet apartment holding Emma, who had finally stopped crying. The notification certificate lay on the coffee table, official and final. I called Maria first, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. She arrived within 20 minutes, gathering me and Emma into a fierce hug that finally broke the dam holding back my tears. He's gone, I sobbed against her shoulder. Marcus is gone. I know, honey, I know. Word spread quickly through the military community. By afternoon, my apartment was filled with wives bringing casseroles, flowers, offers to help with anything I needed. These women who understood military loss surrounded me with practical support and shared grief. But underneath the immediate shock was a growing terror about the future. How would I raise Emma alone? The military benefits would help, that they wouldn't be enough. I had some savings, but Marcus had been the primary breadwinner. The financial security we'd built together suddenly felt fragile and uncertain. That night, after everyone left and Emma was finally asleep, I sat in Marcus's chair and opened the notification certificate again. Sergeant Marcus J. Carter, killed in action, survived by wife Lucy and daughter Emma. The official language couldn't capture the man who sang lullabies in silly voices, who stayed up all night when Emma was sick, who dreamed of giving us a better life. I thought about his last words to me, check my footlocker. But I wasn't ready to go through his things yet. I wasn't ready to accept that he was truly gone, that those belongings were all I had left of the man I'd planned to grow old with. Emma slept peacefully in her crib, unaware that she would grow up with only stories of her father, unaware that The strong hands that had held her those first precious weeks would never hold her again. I had no idea that Marcus's final gift to us was still waiting to be discovered. My parents appeared at Marcus's funeral like uninvited ghosts from my past. I hadn't called them. Maria had, thinking they should know their son-in-law had died and their daughter needed support. I first noticed them during the service, sitting 3 rows back, dressed in black and wearing expressions that seemed more vindicated than grieved. The funeral was everything Marcus would have wanted. His military brothers served as pallbearers, their faces stoic as they carried his flag-draped casket. The chapel was filled with soldiers, military families, and the community we'd built together. Emma slept in my arms, oblivious to the ceremony honoring her father's sacrifice. Colonel Hayes delivered the eulogy, describing Marcus as a natural leader who always put others first. Sergeant Carter died as he lived protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. His final act saved 12 innocent lives, including 4 children under the age of 10. I listened to story after story of Marcus's character, his humor, his dedication. Soldiers spoke about how he'd mentored younger enlisted men, how he'd volunteered for the most dangerous missions, how he'd talked endlessly about his wife and baby daughter back home. My parents sat silent through it all, their faces unreadable. After the service, as people offered condolences, my parents approached. Mum carried a generic sympathy card, the kind you buy at the grocery store checkout line. The front had a peaceful sunset with gold script reading, "With sympathy." Inside, she'd written only, "Our thoughts are with you, Robert and Patricia Mills." "Lucy," Mom said stiffly, not attempting to hug me, "we're sorry for your loss." Dad nodded. "It's a tragedy. We're sorry it happened. Not sorry for Marcus. Not sorry for Emma losing her father. Sorry it happened, like it was a natural disaster, rather than the death of their son-in-law." "Thank you for coming," I managed, Emma stirring in my arms. "We felt we should pay our respects," Dad said, glancing around at the military families surrounding us, though I have to say we're not surprised. "We warned you this could happen." Maria, who had been standing nearby, stepped closer. The other military wives formed a subtle protective circle around me, their loyalty as fierce as their grief. "Perhaps this isn't the time," Maria said quietly but firmly. "Of course," Mom replied. "We just wanted Lucy to know we're thinking of her during this difficult time." They stayed for exactly 15 more minutes, accepting condolences from people who assumed they were loving in-laws devastated by loss. I watched them nod solemnly when Colonel Hayes shook their hands, saw them maintain appropriately sad expressions. When Marcus's army buddies shared memories, I caught their whispered conversation near the church entrance as they prepared to leave. "Such a waste," Mom murmured to Dad. "That poor baby will grow up without a father. We tried to warn her," Dad replied. "She made her choice. Now she have to live with the consequences." They left without offering to help with Emma, without asking about my financial situation, without suggesting I come stay with them while I figured out my next steps. The sympathy card they'd given me contained no personal message, no offer of support, no acknowledgement that Emma was their granddaughter. That evening, after everyone had gone home and Emma was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table staring at their card. 5 months old, and Emma had never received a birthday card, Christmas present, or even a phone call from her grandparents. Now she never would from her father either. I thought about the stark contrast between my parents' cold duty and the warm embraces I'd received from Marcus's military family. Women who barely knew me had offered to babysit, bring meals, help with anything I needed. My own parents had shown up to confirm their predictions and collect social credit for attending the next morning. I found a voicemail from my mother. "Lucy, we've been thinking about your situation. We know this is difficult, but we want you to understand that we can't get involved in raising Marcus's child. We're not in a position to provide financial support or childcare. We hope you understand. Marcus's child, not their granddaughter, not Emma, Marcus's child." As if she was some burden he'd left behind, rather than a piece of their family. I deleted the message and blocked their number. The first month after Marcus died, I lived in a fog of grief and terror. Emma's needs kept me moving, feeding her, changing her, soothing her cries, but everything else felt impossible. The stack of overdue bills on my kitchen table grew taller each day, a paper monument to my inability to function. The military widow benefits helped, but they didn't cover everything. Marcus's life insurance was tied up in paperwork that seemed designed to torture grieving spouses. The survivor benefit plan would eventually kick in, but eventually didn't pay for formula or electricity, or the car payment that was now 3 weeks late. I'd returned to work at the accounting firm after 6 weeks, bringing Emma with me when I couldn't find childcare. My boss, Mr. Henderson, was understanding at first, but his patience wore thin when Emma's crying disrupted client meetings. "Lucy, I sympathize with your situation," he said during what he called a compassionate conversation. "But this arrangement isn't working. Perhaps you should consider taking extended leave until you get your personal life sorted out." Extended leave meant no income. No income meant I couldn't afford our apartment, Emma's formula, or the mounting credit card debt I'd accumulated just trying to survive. I spent sleepless nights walking Emma around our apartment, her colicky cries echoing off walls that felt like they were closing in. She seemed to sense my stress, becoming more fussy and harder to comfort. The happy, content baby she'd been with Marcus had disappeared, replaced by a restless infant who cried for hours, despite my desperate attempts to soothe her. "What am I doing wrong?" I asked Maria during one of her visits, Emma screaming in my arms despite being fed, changed, and burped. "Nothing," Maria said firmly, taking Emma and somehow getting her to calm within minutes. "She's grieving too, Lucy. Babies feel everything we feel." But Maria had her own family, her own responsibilities. She couldn't be my full-time support system, much as she wanted to help. I tried calling my parents once, swallowing my pride during a particularly desperate moment when Emma had been crying for 4 hours straight, and I was down to my last $20. "Hi, Mom. I know we haven't talked since the funeral, but I'm struggling. Emma's been so fussy and work is complicated, and I could use some help." "What kind of help?" Her voice was cautious, already pulling back. "Maybe just someone to watch Emma for a few hours so I can sleep. Or if you could loan me some money until the insurance comes through. Lucy, we told you we can't get involved in this situation. You made adult choices, and now you have adult responsibilities." The line went dead. That night, I sat on my bathroom floor while Emma finally slept, sorting through bills I couldn't pay. Rent, $450, past due. Electric, $127. Final notice. Car payment, $289. Threatening repossession. Groceries charged to a credit card that was maxed out. I thought about Marcus's careful financial planning, his spreadsheets and investment talks, his confidence that he was building our security. All of that planning seemed useless now that he was gone and I was drowning in basic survival. The apartment felt haunted by his absence. His coffee mug still sat in the sink. His side of the bed remained untouched. Emma's bouncy seat faced the chair where he used to sit and make funny faces at her. Every corner held memories that made breathing hurt. I started looking at smaller apartments, cheaper options that might be manageable on my reduced income. Studio apartments in rough neighborhoods, places where I'd worry about Emma's safety, but might be able to afford rent. The American dream Marcus and I had been building together was cracking apart, piece by piece. One evening, while Emma slept fitfully in her crib, I found myself standing in our bedroom doorway, staring at Marcus's footlocker. He'd told me to check it if anything happened to him, but I'd been too afraid, too overwhelmed, too convinced that opening it would make his death final in a way I wasn't ready to accept. The footlocker sat at the foot of our bed. Olive green military issue, locked with a simple combination lock. Marcus had never told me the combination, but I knew him well enough to guess. I tried Emma's birthday, 0218. The lock clicked open. Inside were his uniforms, carefully folded, his dress blues, his combat fatigues, his boots polished to a mirror shine. Underneath were personal items, letters I'd written during deployments, photos of our wedding, Emma's hospital bracelet from the day she was born, and taped to the inside of his left combat boot. I found a small silver key. The small silver key burned in my palm as I stared at it, trying to understand what Marcus had hidden from me. It was clearly a safety deposit box key, but I had no idea which bank or what it might contain. That discovery would have to wait. Emma's baptism was in 2 weeks, and I had made a decision that surprised even me. I was going home to Richmond to baptize Emma at St. Mark's Episcopal, the church where I'd grown up singing in the children's choir. Despite everything, I wanted Emma to have that connection to her heritage, to be welcomed into a faith community, even if her own family had rejected her. More than that, I wanted one last chance to reach my parents. Maybe seeing Emma in the same sanctuary where they'd been married, where I'd been baptized 30 years ago, would finally break through their cold hearts. Maybe holding their granddaughter would awaken some parental instinct they buried under years of disappointment and judgment. I spent our last grocery money on elegant baptism invitations, cream cardstock with gold embossed crosses. Inside, I wrote in my careful script, Robert and Patricia Mills are cordially invited to the baptism of their granddaughter, Emma Rose Carter, on Sunday, June 15th, at 11 a.m. at St. Mark's Episcopal Church, Richmond, Virginia. Reception to follow in the parish hall. I included a photo of Emma in the tiny white baptismal gown Maria had given me, her dark eyes serious and beautiful. On the back, I wrote, "Your granddaughter would love to meet you." When I called to give them the details, Mom answered with her usual cool politeness. "We received your invitation," she said without preamble. "Will you come? It would mean so much to Emma. We'll consider it." 3 days later, to my shock, she called back. "Your father and I have decided to attend the baptism. We feel we should support you during this transition in your life." Transition. As if my husband's death and single motherhood was some sort of career change rather than a devastating tragedy. But I pushed down my irritation, focusing on the hope blooming in my chest. "Thank you," I said. "It means everything to me. We want to be clear that this doesn't change our position on your situation, but Emma is family, and family should witness important sacraments." I spent the week before the baptism in a frenzy of preparation. I drove to Richmond and met with Father Williams, the elderly priest who had baptized me decades ago. He was kind and gentle, asking thoughtful questions about Marcus and offering sincere condolences. "Military families make tremendous sacrifices," he said. "Emma will grow up knowing her father died serving others. That's a profound legacy." Maria and 3 other military wives agreed to make the drive to Richmond for the service. "We're Emma's family too," Maria insisted when I tried to tell them it wasn't necessary. "She needs people there who love her." I reserved the parish hall for a small reception afterward, hoping against hope that my parents would stay to meet the women who had become my chosen family. I imagined them seeing how supported Emma and I were, how loved we were by this community of strong military spouses. The night before the baptism, I stayed in a budget motel near the church, Emma sleeping peacefully in the portable crib I'd borrowed. I laid out her baptismal gown, white and beautiful with tiny pearl buttons, and tried to imagine Marcus there with us. "Tomorrow you'll be baptized, sweet girl," I whispered to her sleeping form. "Daddy would be so proud. And maybe, just maybe, your grandparents will finally see how precious you are." I fell asleep clutching the mysterious key Marcus had hidden, wondering if whatever secret it unlocked could somehow give Emma the security and love she deserved. I had no idea that by the next evening, that key would change our lives forever, or that my parents' cruelty would finally push me to discover the incredible gift Marcus had left behind. St. Mark's Episcopal Church looked exactly as I remembered. From childhood stone walls, stained glass windows, wooden pews worn smooth by decades of worshippers, the baptismal font near the altar was filled with holy water, and Father Williams stood ready in his white vestments, his kind face glowing with the joy he brought to every sacrament. Emma looked like an angel in her baptismal gown, the white fabric making her dark hair appear even more lustrous. Maria and the other military wives had arrived early, filling the front pews with their presence and support. They brought flowers, white roses, and baby's breath that now decorated the altar. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, sliding into a pew near the back of the church. They wore appropriate church clothes, Dad in his navy suit, Mom in a conservative dress, but their faces were set in expressions of duty rather than joy. They nodded acknowledgement when they saw me, but made no move to come closer or ask to hold Emma. Father Williams began the service with a prayer, his voice echoing in the sacred space. We gather today to welcome Emma Rose Carter into the family of God, to celebrate her as a beloved child of our Heavenly Father. Emma was remarkably calm during the early part of the service, looking around at the stained glass windows with wide, curious eyes. When Father Williams took her in his arms, she even smiled, causing Maria to whisper, "She knows she's in a holy place." But as the service progressed, Emma became increasingly fussy. She started with small whimpers, then escalated to full crying as Father Williams began the actual baptism. Her wails echoed off the stone walls, and I felt my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "It's okay," Father Williams said gently, his voice carrying over Emma's cries. "Babies often cry during baptism. It's perfectly normal." From the back of the church, I heard my mother's exasperated sigh, audible even over Emma's screaming. When I glanced back, I saw her checking her watch and whispering something to my father. Father Williams continued with the ceremony, pouring water over Emma's head while she cried. "Emma Rose Carter, I baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." The moment the water touched her forehead, Emma's cries intensified. She was red-faced and inconsolable, and I felt like the worst mother in the world. Maria leaned over to reassure me, but I could see the discomfort on other faces in the small congregation. After the service, people lingered to congratulate us and meet Emma, who had finally calmed down. The military wives surrounded me with warmth and support, telling stories about their own children's baptisms, making me feel less alone and embarrassed. "She's beautiful," Mrs. Peterson from the church said, gently touching Emma's hand. "What a precious little girl." I looked toward the back of the church, hoping to see my parents approaching, ready to meet their granddaughter properly. Instead, I saw them heading toward the exit. "Wait," I called, hurrying after them with Emma in my arms. "Aren't you staying for the reception?" They stopped at the church entrance, their faces closed and impatient. "We felt we should attend the service," Mum said. "But we have other commitments." "Please," I said, my voice breaking. "Just meet her properly. Hold your granddaughter." Dad glanced at Emma, who chose that moment to start fussing again. His expression hardened. "Lucy, we need to talk," he said, steering me toward the church parking lot, away from the other families. "What's wrong?" I asked, though I could feel the familiar cold dread settling in my stomach. "This whole situation," Mom said, her voice sharp. "You bringing that baby here, expecting us to play grandparents. It's not appropriate." "She's your granddaughter," I said, my voice rising. "Her name is Emma. She's 6 months old, and she's never even been held by her grandparents." "She's Marcus's child," Dad said firmly. "We told you from the beginning we wouldn't be involved in raising a soldier's baby." "Marcus is dead," I said, tears starting to fall. "He died serving his country. Emma is all I have left of him." "And that's your problem," Mom said coldly. "We're not helping you raise that war orphan. You made your bed when you married that soldier, now lie in it. War orphan." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stared at my parents, these people who had raised me, who had once loved me, and saw only strangers. "She's not a war orphan," I whispered. "She's your granddaughter. She's my daughter. She's a baby who needs her family." She's the consequence of your poor choices, Dad said. We warned you this would happen. We told you not to marry him, not to have children with him. You didn't listen. Emma started crying again, perhaps sensing the tension, perhaps just tired from the long day. Her cries seemed to irritate my parents even more. We're not babysitters, Mom said over Emma's wails. We're not financial support. We're not going to pretend this situation is normal or healthy. Get out, I said, my voice barely controlled. Get out of here and don't ever contact us again. Lucy, Dad started. No, you called my daughter a war orphan. You looked at this innocent baby and saw only your own vindication. You're not her grandparents. Grandparents love their grandchildren unconditionally. I walked back toward the church, Emma crying in my arms, my legs shaking with rage and heartbreak. Behind me, I heard car doors slam and an engine start. Maria met me at the church entrance, her face fierce with protective anger. I heard, she said simply, taking Emma from my arms. I heard every word. They called her a war orphan, I sobbed. They called my baby a war orphan. They're not worthy of her, Maria said firmly. And they're not worthy of you. That night, in my motel room, I sat on the bed holding the mysterious key Marcus had hidden, Emma finally sleeping peacefully beside me. I thought about his words. Check my footlocker. There's something important you need to find. Tomorrow I would discover what that something was, and it would change everything. I drove back to base housing the morning after, Emma's baptism with my parents' cruel words echoing in my mind. War orphan. The phrase felt like poison in my bloodstream, making me angrier with each mile. But beneath, the anger was determination. I was going to find out what Marcus had hidden, and I was going to build the life he'd wanted for Emma and me. The safety deposit box key felt warm in my palm as I sat in our apartment, Emma napping peacefully after the previous day's chaos. I had no idea which bank Marcus had used, so I started with the obvious choice, the base credit union where we kept our checking account. I need to access my husband's safety deposit box, I told the teller, placing Marcus's death certificate and the key on the counter. He was killed in action 3 months ago. The teller, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, checked her computer. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Carter. Yes, we do have a box registered to Sergeant Marcus Carter. You're listed as the secondary holder, so you have full access. My hands shook as she led me to the vault. Box 247 was small, maybe 12 inches, square, tucked among hundreds of others. The key turned easily, and I lifted the metal door with my heart pounding. Inside were documents, lots of documents. Investment statements, insurance policies, legal papers I'd never seen before. At the top was a letter addressed to me in Marcus's careful handwriting, for Lucy and Emma, to be opened only if something happens to me. I sat in the small privacy room the bank provided and opened the letter with trembling fingers. My dearest, Lucy, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true, and I'm not there to take care of you and Emma. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm sorry I can't hold you both. Sorry I can't watch Emma grow up. Sorry I can't grow old with you like we planned. But I need you to know that even though I'm gone, I've made sure you'll never have to depend on anyone else, not your parents, not the government, not anyone who might fail you when you need them most. I've been preparing for this possibility since our first deployment. Look through these documents carefully. Everything is yours now. I've been investing every penny of combat pay since we got married, taking advantage of tax-free income and high-risk, high-reward opportunities. I studied the market obsessively, Lucy. I wanted to give you choices. You'll find investment portfolios, life insurance policies beyond the basic military coverage, and real estate investments I made without telling you because I didn't want you to worry. I also set up educational trusts for Emma and future children we might have had. The most important thing is this: you are not a victim. You are not dependent. You are the wife of a man who loved you so much that he spent 3 years building. your financial freedom instead of buying himself anything he wanted. Use this money to build the life you deserve. Start the financial consulting business we talked about. Give Emma every opportunity. And never, ever let anyone, especially your parents, make you feel like you're not enough. You are everything. Lucy, you are strong, brilliant, and capable of anything. Emma will grow up knowing her father loved her enough to secure her future, and her mother was brave enough to build on that foundation. I love you both forever. Marcus P.S. The combination to our home safe is Emma's birthday. Inside you'll find the business plan I've been working on for your consulting firm. I believe in you, Lucy. Now believe in yourself. I sat in that small room and sobbed for Marcus, for the future we'd lost, for the incredible man who had loved us enough to plan for the worst while hoping for the best. Then I started looking through the documents, and my grief transformed into stunned amazement. Investment portfolio statements showing $2.3 million in carefully diversified holdings. Life insurance policies totaling $500,000 beyond the military benefits. Real estate investments in 3 growing markets worth another $400,000. Educational trusts for Emma, already funded with $150,000. Marcus had turned his modest military salary into nearly $3.5 million through careful investing, strategic risk-taking, and an unwavering focus on our future. My parents had dismissed him as just a soldier, but he'd built wealth that would put most business executives to shame. The last document in the box was a deed. Marcus had bought us a house, a 4-bedroom colonial in a good school district about an hour from base. He'd been planning to surprise me when he returned from deployment. I drove home in a daze, Emma sleeping in her car seat, my mind reeling with the magnitude of what Marcus had accomplished. He'd given us more than financial security. He'd given us complete independence. I would never again have to beg my parents for help, never have to accept their conditional love, never have to watch them reject Emma because of their prejudices. That evening, I opened our home safe using Emma's birthday and found Marcus's detailed business plan for Carter Financial Consulting. 27 pages of market research, target demographics, startup costs, and projected revenues. He'd even identified potential office locations and created marketing materials. At the bottom of the business plan was a note: Lucy has the education, intelligence, and integrity to help working families build the kind of security we've built. Together, this business will honor both her talents and our shared values. For the first time since Marcus died, I felt something other than grief and fear. I felt empowered. I felt ready to show the world, and especially my parents, exactly what Marcus Carter's widow was capable of. Over the next 3 days, I immersed myself in understanding exactly what Marcus had built for us. Each document told a story of careful planning, strategic thinking, and unwavering love. My husband hadn't just been a soldier, he'd been a financial mastermind who'd used every advantage of military life to secure our future. The investment portfolio was the most impressive piece. Marcus had started with just $200 from his first deployment, money he could have spent on entertainment or comfort items. Instead, he'd researched growth stocks, emerging markets, and technology companies. His early investment in a small tech startup had alone grown to $180,000. His Amazon stock, purchased when it was under $400 per share, was now worth $320,000. But it wasn't just lucky picks. Marcus had diversified across sectors, balanced risk with stability, and reinvested dividends consistently. His portfolio notes, written in his precise handwriting, showed he'd studied annual reports, followed market trends, and made calculated decisions based on thorough research. Combat pay is tax-free, he'd written in one margin note. Every dollar invested works harder because Uncle Sam can't touch it. The life insurance policies revealed even more strategic thinking. Beyond the standard military coverage, Marcus had purchased additional term life policies totaling $500,000 he'd locked in low rates while he was young and healthy, increasing coverage each time his income grew. The beneficiary forms were filled out in triplicate, with backups to the backups. The real estate investments showed Marcus's long-term vision. He'd purchased 3 properties in areas he'd researched for growth potential, a duplex near Fort Bragg that was already generating rental income, a small commercial building in a revitalizing downtown district, and vacant land outside Austin that he'd correctly predicted would appreciate as the city expanded. The house deed made me cry all over again. It was in a neighborhood I'd driven through once, admiring the tree-lined streets and well-maintained homes. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, a 2-car garage, and a big backyard where Emma could play. Marcus had put 20% down and arranged financing for the rest, planning to surprise me with it when he returned. His note attached to the deed read, "Every military family deserves stability. Emma will grow up in one house, with one school district, with neighbors who watch her grow up. No more moving every 2 years." But perhaps the most touching discovery was Emma's education fund. Marcus had set up a $529 college savings plan and been contributing $300 per month since the day she was born. In 6 months, he'd already saved $2,100, with projected growth that would fully fund her college education by the time she turned 18. "Emma will have choices I never had," he'd written. "She can study anything, go anywhere, become anything. Money won't limit her dreams." The business plan for Carter Financial Consulting was 27 pages of pure Marcus, thorough, optimistic, and completely focused on helping others. He'd identified a niche market: young military families and working class civilians who needed investment advice but couldn't afford traditional wealth management services. His target demographic research was spot on. Enlisted military families often have disposable income during deployments but lack financial education. Young civilian families want to invest but are intimidated by minimum balances and complex fee structures. Lucy can bridge this gap. He'd calculated startup costs, $75,000, projected first-year revenues, $180,000, and identified 3 potential office locations near military bases. He'd even designed a logo and created sample marketing materials, featuring testimonials from hypothetical clients who sounded suspiciously like our military friends. The most detailed section was his analysis of my qualifications. Marcus had documented every course I'd taken, every skill I'd developed, every successful project from my accounting job. He'd written about my natural ability to explain complex concepts simply, my patience with clients who felt overwhelmed, my integrity in handling sensitive financial information. "Lucy has something most financial advisors lack," he'd written. "She understands what it's like to worry about money, to make sacrifices for future security, to balance dreams with realistic planning. She won't talk down to clients because she's been where they are." The final page of the business plan contained Marcus's personal message to me: "Lucy, by the time you read this, you'll know that I've been keeping secrets. Not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted you to have options if the worst happened. You married a small-town kid who enlisted because he couldn't afford college. But you're getting widowed by a man who built something worthy of your intelligence and dreams. I've given you enough money to never work again if you don't want to. But I know you, Lucy. You need purpose, challenge, the satisfaction of building something meaningful. This business plan isn't just about financial success. It's about using your gifts to help other families avoid the struggles we've seen. Start the business when you're ready. Take your time grieving. Take care of Emma. Take care of yourself. But when you're ready to show the world what Lucy Carter can do, you'll have everything you need. Your parents think I couldn't provide for you. I hope someday they realize I didn't just provide for you. I empowered you to provide for others. I love you, Lucy. Make me proud." I sat in our living room surrounded by documents that represented Marcus's love made tangible. He'd spent 3 years building our security while I thought he was just playing around with online investing. He'd researched, planned, and executed a financial strategy that most people twice his age couldn't achieve. Emma gurgled happily in her bouncy seat, unaware that her father had just transformed her from a war orphan into one of the most financially secure babies in Virginia. Tomorrow, I would start the process of claiming our new life. Tonight, I would grieve for the man who had loved us enough to plan for a future he wouldn't be part of. Marcus's business plan became my Bible over the following weeks. I read it obsessively, studying every detail of his vision for Carter Financial Consulting. His research was thorough, his projections realistic, his understanding of my capabilities both humbling and inspiring. He'd identified the perfect market gap: military families and young civilians who wanted to invest but felt intimidated by traditional financial advisors. These were people like us, hardworking, ambitious, but without family wealth or financial education. They needed someone who understood their challenges because they'd lived them. The startup capital was already secured through Marcus's investments. He'd allocated $75,000 for the business launch, $30,000 for office setup and first-year rent, $15,000 for licensing and certification fees, $20,000 for marketing and technology, and $10,000 for working capital. Every expense was itemized, researched, and justified. His location analysis focused on 3 areas near military installations where our target demographic lived and worked. The top choice was a small office complex 15 minutes from Fort Lee, with reasonable rent and plenty of parking. Marcus had even included photos and floor plans, noting which office would work best for client meetings, and which had space for Emma's playpen during appointments. The services section revealed how deeply Marcus understood both financial planning and my personality. Rather than trying to compete with large investment firms, Carter Financial Consulting would focus on education and accessibility. Basic investment planning for $100 per session. Portfolio reviews for young families starting with $1,000 to invest. Educational workshops on military-specific financial benefits. Lucy won't just manage people's money, Marcus had written. She'd teach them to understand it. She'd empower them to make informed decisions. She'd be the advisor she wishes we'd had when we were starting out. His marketing strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Word-of-mouth referrals from satisfied military families. Partnerships with base family support groups. Educational seminars at community centers. Social media presence focused on financial literacy for young families. The sample marketing materials made me cry and laugh simultaneously. Mock testimonials featured Captain Sarah Johnson saying, "Lucy helped us turn our deployment savings into a down payment on our dream home." Another featured Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, crediting Carter Financial Consulting with helping his family build an emergency fund that gave us peace of mind during uncertain times. Marcus had even created a mission statement for the business. Carter Financial Consulting exists to democratize financial planning for working families. We believe everyone deserves access to professional investment advice, regardless of account size or background. We specialize in helping military families and young civilians build wealth through education, strategic planning, and personalized service. The most detailed section covered my professional development plan. Marcus had researched the requirements for becoming a certified financial planner, identified continuing education courses that would enhance my credentials, and budgeted for conference attendance and professional memberships. Lucy already has the accounting background, he'd noted. She needs investment-specific training and client management experience. 18 months of focused study and practice will make her more qualified than advisors who inherited family businesses. But the section that revealed Marcus's true genius was his analysis of the competition. He'd identified weaknesses in existing financial services that Carter Financial Consulting could exploit. Minimum balance requirements that excluded our target market, complex fee structures that confused clients, and condescending attitudes toward military families and blue-collar workers. Established firms don't want clients with $5,000 to invest, Marcus had written. They're focused on high net worth individuals and institutional accounts. That leaves an entire market underserved. Lucy can build a thriving practice helping people everyone else ignores. His financial projections showed modest but steady growth. Year 1, $180,000 in revenue with 200 clients, averaging $900 in annual fees. Year 2, $320,000 in revenue with 350 clients as word-of-mouth referrals grew. Year 5, $650,000 in revenue with a team of 2 additional advisors and 700 clients. These numbers assume Lucy captures just 2% of the target market within 50, Marcus had noted. Conservative estimate based on demographic data and competitor analysis. Upside potential is much higher if the business model proves successful. The most touching section was titled, "Why Lucy Will Succeed." Marcus had documented my strengths with the thoroughness of a military intelligence report, my ability to explain complex concepts simply, my patience with confused clients, my integrity when handling sensitive information, my empathy for financial struggles, my determination to help others avoid the mistakes we'd seen. Lucy doesn't just understand numbers, he'd written. She understands people. She remembers what it felt like to choose between groceries and car repairs. She knows the anxiety of checking account balances before making purchases. These experiences will make her the advisor our target market trusts and respects. The final page contained implementation steps, arranged in order of priority. Obtain required licenses, secure office space, develop client intake procedures, create educational materials, launch marketing campaign, schedule first client meetings. At the bottom, Marcus had written a personal note that made me sob. Lucy, I've given you the tools and the capital, but the success will be yours to earn. I believe in your intelligence, your integrity, and your heart. This business will help hundreds of families build the security we've built together. When you're helping a young couple buy their first house, or watching a military family celebrate their fully funded emergency account, you'll be honoring both your talents and my memory. Emma will grow up watching her mother build something meaningful. Something that helps others, something that proves we were right to believe in each other. She knows her father didn't just leave her money. He left her an example of what love looks like when it plans for the future. Make this business everything we dreamed it could be. I know you will. Reading those words, I felt Marcus's presence more strongly than I had since his death. He hadn't just given me financial security, he'd given me purpose, direction, and complete confidence in my ability to succeed. Tomorrow, I would start the process of becoming the woman he believed I already was. 3 months later, I drove to my parents' house in Richmond with Emma, sleeping peacefully in her car seat, and a folder of documents that would change everything. I'd spent the summer transforming myself from grieving widow to confident businesswoman, and today I was going to show my parents exactly what their war orphan was worth. Carter Financial Consulting had launched 6 weeks earlier. I'd obtained my investment advisor license, secured the office space Marcus had recommended, and already signed 12 clients. My business cards read, Lucy Carter, CFP candidate, founder, in elegant script, and my bank statements showed healthy growth that had nothing to do with sympathy or charity. The house I'd grown up in looked smaller than I remembered. The white, colonial with green shutters sitting on its perfectly manicured lawn. Dad's Mercedes was in the driveway, the same car he'd bought to impress neighbors, financed at 4.9% interest when he could have invested that money and earned twice as much. I rang the doorbell with Emma in my arms, my confidence armor in place. Mum answered, her expression shifting from surprise to wariness when she saw us. Lucy, we weren't expecting you. I know, we need to talk. Your father's watching the game. Get him. This concerns both of you. Something in my tone must have convinced her, because she led us to the living room where Dad sat in his recliner, barely glancing up from the television. Robert, Lucy's here with the baby. Emma, I corrected firmly. Her name is Emma. She's 10 months old, and she's walking now. Dad muted the TV and looked at me properly for the first time. I'd changed since they'd last seen me professional clothing. Confident posture. None of the desperate grief that had marked me at the baptism. What can we do for you, Lucy? His tone suggested he expected me to ask for money or help. Instead, I set Emma down on their carpet, where she immediately began exploring their coffee table with curious hands. Then I opened my folder and placed the first document on their glass-top table. I want to show you something, I said, setting down Carter Financial Consulting's first quarterly report. My business revenue for the past 6 weeks. Mum leaned forward despite herself, reading the numbers. $23,400 in management fees, $8,100 in consultation services, $4,900 in educational workshop income, total $36,400 in 6 weeks. What is this? Dad asked, his dismissive tone wavering slightly. My financial planning business. I help military families and young civilians build wealth through strategic investing. I place down client testimonials, letters of recommendation, my professional certifications. You started a business. Mum's voice held a note I'd never heard before, something that might have been respect. Marcus started it, I said firmly. He researched the market, wrote the business plan, secured the capital, and chose the location. He spent 3 years building the foundation so I could succeed after he was gone. I placed Marcus's investment portfolio summary on the table. The numbers were impossible to ignore. $2.3 million in diversified holdings, managed and grown from combat pay most people would have spent on temporary pleasures. Dad picked up the document, his expression changing as he processed what he was seeing. This can't be accurate. It's completely accurate. Marcus turned his military salary into nearly $3.5 million. Through careful investing and strategic financial planning, the man you dismissed as just a soldier built more wealth by age 23 than most people accumulate in a lifetime. I showed them the house deed, the educational trusts for Emma, the life insurance policies that ensured we'd never need anyone's charity or conditional support. Marcus didn't just provide for us, I continued, my voice gaining strength. He empowered us. Emma will attend any college she chooses, debt-free. I'll never have to depend on employers who see single motherhood as a liability or parents who see their granddaughter as a burden. Mom was staring at the documents with something approaching shock. We had no idea. You had no interest, I corrected. You decided Marcus was beneath our family before you knew anything about his character, his intelligence, or his capabilities. You saw a uniform and made assumptions. Dad had grown very quiet, studying the investment summaries with the attention he usually reserved for his own financial statements. Here's what Marcus accomplished, I said, placing down a timeline I'd created. Age 18, enlisted in the army. Age 19, began college courses. Age 20, started investing. Age 21, met me and maintained a 3.8 GPA while serving full-time. Age 22, married me and bought his first rental property. Age 23, died protecting civilians after building a financial legacy most CEOs would envy. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Emma had found one of Mom's decorative vases and was examining it with serious concentration. Lucy, Mum, said finally, we didn't know about any of this. Because you didn't want to know. You wanted to be right about your predictions more than you wanted to understand your son-in-law. We were concerned about your future. No, I interrupted, standing up. You were concerned about your reputation. You were embarrassed that your daughter married someone without a trust fund and country club membership. I gathered Emma and my documents, my point made. I came here today to show you what you missed. Marcus wasn't the failure you predicted, he was exceptional. Emma isn't a burden or a war orphan. She's the most financially secure child in this neighborhood. Dad finally spoke, his voice subdued. Lucy, if we misjudge, you didn't misjudge, I said firmly. You chose. You chose prejudice over curiosity, assumptions over facts, pride over love. You called my daughter a war orphan at her baptism. Remember? We want to make things right, Mom said quickly. We want to be part of Emma's life. Now you do. Now that you know she's worth millions. Now that my business is successful. Now that Marcus's legacy proves you were wrong about everything. I picked up Emma, who gurgled happily, and waved at her grandparents who were finally seeing her clearly for the first time. Emma doesn't need grandparents who love her conditionally, I said. She has a chosen family of military spouses who've supported us from day one. She has clients' families who send birthday cards and Christmas presents. She has love that isn't dependent on bank statements or social status. I walked toward the door, my confidence intact. My point made. Lucy, wait, Dad called. Can't we start over? I turned back one final time. You had 10 months to start over. 10 months to choose love over pride. You chose pride every single time. But surely now Emma and I don't need you, I said simply. Marcus made sure of that. His love was unconditional, his planning was thorough, and his legacy is everything you aren't. Generous, selfless, and genuinely caring about our future. I left them sitting in their perfect living room with the documents that proved everything they believed was wrong. Everything they'd said was cruel, and everything they'd lost was irreplaceable. 6 months later, I stood in my office at Carter, financial consulting, watching Emma play with blocks while I prepared for my afternoon client meeting. The walls displayed thank you letters from military families and Marcus's business license framed beside mine. The business had grown beyond Marcus's projections. 47 clients now trusted me with their financial futures, from young soldiers saving for homes to veteran families planning retirement. My reputation had spread through word-of-mouth referrals. Mrs. Carter? My next appointment, Sergeant Lisa Thompson, knocked on the open door. I brought the documents you requested. Lisa was 24, recently married, with a husband deployed overseas, and $15,000 in combat pay. She wanted to invest wisely. Exactly the kind of client Marcus had envisioned, serving hardworking, motivated, but intimidated by traditional investment firms that required 6-figure minimums. Please, call me Lucy, I said, settling into my desk chair while Emma continued playing contentedly. Let's talk about your goals. For the next hour, I walked Lisa through investment options, explaining compound interest with Marcus's same patience. I helped her understand military investment advantages, diversification importance, and building wealth steadily, rather than chasing quick schemes. You really think I can have $100,000 saved by the time my husband finishes his enlistment? Lisa asked, reviewing the projection I prepared. If you follow this plan and stay consistent, absolutely. Your husband's combat pay is tax-free, which gives you a huge advantage. The key is starting now and being disciplined about regular contributions. After Lisa left with her investment plan, I reflected on our progress. Emma was walking confidently now, babbling and pointing at Marcus's pictures, saying something like, Dada. The house Marcus bought had become our sanctuary. Emma had her yellow room filled with toys purchased without financial worry. The backyard swing set brought her hours of joyful laughter. My parents had tried calling twice since our confrontation. I deleted both awkward reconciliation attempts without responding. Maria and the military wives remained our closest family. They celebrated Emma's milestones and provided the unconditional love my parents had withheld. Lucy, Maria had said during Emma's birthday party, Marcus would be so proud of what you've built. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. She was right. Carter Financial Consulting wasn't just providing income, it was providing purpose. Every client I helped achieve their financial goals honored Marcus's vision of using our experience to serve others. Every young couple I guided toward homeownership proved his belief in education and empowerment. The business license on my wall read, Carter Financial Consulting, LLC, Lucy Carter, founder. Below hung Marcus's 27-page business plan that transformed grief into determination. His photograph sat beside Emma's pictures, both smiling. Through glass and time, that evening, giving Emma her bath, I thought about Marcus's envisioned future. Emma would grow up financially secure but not spoiled, loved but not sheltered, knowing her father's story without being defined by his absence. "Tell me about Daddy," I said to her. As I did every night, Emma looked at me with serious dark eyes, Marcus's eyes, and pointed to his photo on the bathroom counter. "Dada," she said clearly, her first recognizable word. "That's right, sweet. Girl, Daddy loved you so much. He made sure you'd have everything you need, and he made sure Mommy could take care of you and help other families too." After Emma slept, I worked on tomorrow's financial plans. This quiet productivity fueled by purpose had replaced desperation. Bills that once terrified me were now automatic payments from growing accounts. An email brought another referral master. Sergeant Rodriguez's sister needed consultation help. I smiled, knowing Marcus would approve of helping another military family build security. My accountant confirmed. Carter Financial Consulting had generated $127,000 in 6 months. Marcus's projections had been conservative. We exceeded every important metric. In Emma's room, watching her sleep in the crib Marcus assembled, I whispered, "Your daddy kept his promises, Emma. He made sure we'd be extraordinary. His final gift wasn't just money, it was confidence to believe we deserved everything good coming our way."